The chapel falls silent. Every guest stares as I stand alone at the back, white dress flowing, bouquet shaking in my hands. My father sits in the front row next to my half-sister Ashley, his arms crossed like a stone wall. "I meant what I said, Emma," he calls out loud enough for everyone to hear. "You marry that mechanic, you're no daughter of mine. Don't expect me to parade you down there like some proud father." 300 guests watch this humiliation unfold. My mom grips Marcus's hand in the second row, tears streaming down her face. My stepdad's jaw is clenched tight, but he stays seated like I asked him to. Then something shifts in his eyes. Something I've never seen before. Marcus stands up slowly, straightening his suit jacket. He walks toward me with purpose, his footsteps echoing in the dead silence. When he reaches me, he doesn't say a word. He just offers me his arm. "Ready, sweetheart?" he whispers. I take his arm, and we start walking. But I have no idea that my stepdad has been planning something for months. Something that will change everything. "Hi, I'm Emma Collins." Well, Emma Rodriguez after today. And yes, that man who just refused to walk me down the aisle is my biological father, William Collins. He owns Collins Construction, the biggest building company in our town. He's also the man who's made my life hell for 26 years. You see, my dad always wanted the perfect daughter. Someone who would marry rich, stay quiet, and make him look good. That daughter is Ashley, my half-sister. She's everything I'm not: blonde, submissive, and dating the mayor's son. I'm the disappointment. The daughter who became a teacher instead of a trophy wife. The one who fell in love with Jake Rodriguez, a hard-working auto mechanic with calloused hands and a heart of gold. Marcus, my stepdad, married my mom when I was 12. He's been more of a father to me than William ever was. He's the one who taught me to drive, helped with homework, and walked me to school when kids bullied me about my parents' divorce. What everyone doesn't know is that Marcus has been watching. Listening. Planning. And today, he's about to reveal what he's discovered. Growing up in the Collins house was like living in two different worlds. Ashley got the princess room with pink everything and a walk-in closet. I got the basement bedroom that flooded every winter. When Ashley wanted piano lessons, Dad bought her a baby grand. When I asked for art supplies, he said teachers don't need expensive hobbies. Ashley got a new car for her 16th birthday. I got a lecture about earning what you want. "Emma needs to learn that life isn't handed to you," he'd tell my mom during their fights. Ashley understands her place in this family. My place was apparently invisible. Mom tried to make up for it, but she was battling her own depression back then. The divorce hit her hard, and she spent most days in bed. I learned to make my own lunches, walk myself to school, and pretend everything was fine. But Marcus saw through all of it. Even before he married Mom, he noticed how Dad treated me differently. He started keeping notes in a little black book. I thought he was just writing down grocery lists. I was wrong. Marcus was building a case that would destroy my father's reputation forever. I met Jake at the auto shop where I took my beat-up Honda for repairs. My dad's reaction when I brought him home for dinner was exactly what I expected. "So, Jake," Dad said, cutting his steak with unnecessary force, "what are your long-term plans? College? Business ownership?" Jake smiled politely. "I'm actually saving to open my own shop, sir. Already have 3 regular commercial clients and a solid reputation for quality work." Dad snorted. "A mechanic. How practical." Ashley giggled from across the table. She was dating Preston Hughes, whose family owned half the commercial real estate downtown. Perfect princess with her perfect prince. "Jake makes honest money," I said quietly. "He works hard for everything he has." "Hard work doesn't buy security," Dad shot back. "Emma, you could do so much better. Think about your future. Think about the family name." Jake squeezed my hand under the table. "With respect, Mr. Collins, I love your daughter for who she is, not what her last name might buy me." The silence that followed was deafening. Dad's fork clinked against his plate like a countdown timer. That was the night Dad first threatened to cut me off completely. The ultimatum came 3 months later, delivered over family dinner like he was discussing the weather. "I'd been thinking about your situation, Emma," Dad announced, not looking up from his roast beef. "This relationship with the mechanic has gone on long enough." My stomach dropped. "Dad, please don't dash. I'm prepared to make you an offer. End this nonsense with Jake, find someone appropriate, and I'll pay off your student loans. Full amount. Clean slate. $60,000. That was the price tag he'd put on my happiness. "And if I don't?" I asked, though I already knew. Dad finally looked at me, his eyes cold as winter. "Then don't expect any support from this family. No wedding help, no down payment assistance, no inheritance. You'll be completely on your own." Ashley smirked. "Come on, Em. Be practical. There are plenty of successful men who'd be lucky to have you." I stood up, my chair scraping against the hardwood floor. "I'd rather be broke and happy than rich and miserable." "Your choice," Dad said, returning to his meal. "Just remember, I won't be there to catch you when you fall." I walked out that night and didn't look back. 6 months of silence followed. No calls, no texts, no acknowledgement that I existed. Dad blocked my number and told relatives I was going through a rebellious phase. Meanwhile, Ashley's Instagram filled with photos of expensive vacations and shopping trips. #Daddy'sGirl, #blessed, #family-first. Each post felt like a knife twist, reminding me of what I'd given up. Jake noticed my sadness, but he never once suggested I reconsider. "Your worth isn't measured by his approval," he'd say when I had bad days. Mom and Marcus tried to bridge the gap, inviting both sides to family dinners that Dad always declined. "Tell Emma she knows what she needs to do," was his constant response. Wedding planning continued without him. Mom helped pay for my dress. Marcus secretly covered the catering costs, though he made me promise not to tell Mom money was tight since she'd left her job due to anxiety. I kept hoping Dad would change his mind, that he'd realize he was about to miss his daughter's wedding over his own pride. I was naive. Dad doesn't change his mind. He doubles down. But Marcus was quietly working on something that would change everything. Wedding morning arrived with perfect June weather. Sunny skies, gentle breeze, everything I'd dreamed of except for one glaring absence. Getting ready in the bridal suite, I kept checking my phone. Maybe Dad had sent a text. Maybe he'd realized what he was missing. The screen stayed blank. "He might still show up," Mom said hopefully while fixing my veil. Her hands trembled slightly. Marcus appeared in the doorway, looking handsome in his dark suit. "How's my beautiful stepdaughter?" Terrified, I admitted. He walked over and hugged me gently, careful not to wrinkle my dress. "Emma, you are the strongest, kindest, most incredible woman I know. Today is about celebrating you and Jake, not about anyone else's failures." Through the window, I could see guests arriving. Dad's distinctive silver Mercedes pulled up, and my heart jumped. But when he got out with Ashley, he walked straight into the chapel without even glancing toward the bridal suite. "He's really not going to do it," I whispered. Marcus squeezed my shoulder. "Then he's missing out on the greatest honor of his life." I had no idea Marcus meant those words literally. Standing at the altar with Jake, I should have felt pure joy. Instead, I kept glancing at the empty space where my father should have been walking me. The processional music had played, and I'd walked alone while 300 people watched my humiliation. Jake whispered, "You look absolutely perfect." His eyes were bright with love and anger, love for me, anger at the man who'd hurt me. The ceremony began beautifully. Pastor Williams spoke about love, commitment, and chosen family. But I couldn't stop thinking about Dad sitting in that front row, stone-faced, like he was attending a stranger's wedding. Then came the part where Pastor Williams asked, "Who gives this woman to be married?" Traditionally, Dad should have said, "Her mother and I do." Instead, silence stretched like a canyon. Marcus stood up slowly. I thought he was just going to say the words to fill the void. But what came out of his mouth made every person in that chapel gasp. "I do," he said clearly. "And I have something to say about the man who refused this honor." My heart stopped. This wasn't in the script. Marcus was improvising, and I had no idea what was coming next. Marcus walked to the front of the chapel, pulling a thick manila envelope from his jacket. The entire congregation held its breath. Dad's face had gone pale white. "Ladies and gentlemen," Marcus announced, his voice carrying clearly through the chapel. "I've been Emma's stepfather for 14 years. In that time, I've watched her overcome obstacles that would break most people. I've also watched her biological father systematically try to destroy her spirit." Dad started to stand, but Ashley pulled him back down. Her face was confused, scared. "What most of you don't know," Marcus continued, "is that William Collins has been embezzling money from his construction company for the past 5 years. Money that belongs to his business partners, his employees' pension fund, and several charity organizations." The chapel erupted in whispers. Dad shot to his feet. "This is insane," he shouted. "You can't prove any of that." Marcus smiled calmly and held up the envelope. "Actually, I can. I've been gathering evidence for 2 years. Bank records, emails, witness statements. Everything's here." I stared at my stepdad in shock. This quiet, gentle man had been conducting a secret investigation while pretending to just be my supportive stepfather. "The FBI will receive copies tomorrow morning," Marcus announced. The chapel descended into chaos. Half the guests were whispering frantically, others were pulling out their phones to record. Dad looked like he'd seen a ghost, his face cycling between rage and panic. Ashley grabbed his arm. "Dad, what is he talking about? This is crazy, right?" But I could see the truth in Dad's eyes. Everything Marcus was saying was real. "You have no right." Dad screamed at Marcus. "This is my daughter's wedding." "Exactly," Marcus replied calmly. "Your daughter's wedding. The daughter you refused to walk down the aisle because she chose love over money. The daughter you've emotionally abused for 26 years while stealing from people who trusted you." Jake squeezed my hand. I was frozen, watching this surreal scene unfold. Marcus turned to address the congregation again. "William Collins spent years teaching Emma that she wasn't good enough, that she needed his approval to have worth. While he was tearing down his own daughter, he was also stealing retirement money from his employees and charity funds meant for homeless veterans." The envelope in Marcus's hand contained more than evidence. It contained justice. "Emma," Marcus said, turning to me, "you asked me not to make a scene today. But some scenes need to be made." Pastor Williams tried to regain control. "Perhaps we should continue with the ceremony and discuss this privately later. "No," Marcus interrupted gently but firmly. "Emma deserves to know the truth on her wedding day. Everyone here deserves to know who they've been supporting." He opened the envelope and pulled out a thick stack of papers. "William, would you like to explain to everyone how you've been using Collins Construction as your personal piggy bank? Or should I read the bank transfers out loud?" Dad's face had gone from white to red to purple. He looked around the chapel frantically, like he was searching for an escape route. "Marcus, please," Mom whispered from the front row. But even she looked curious now, not shocked. "Sarah Jenkins," Marcus called out to a woman in the third row. "You donated $5,000 to Collins Construction's veteran housing project last Christmas. Would you like to know where that money actually went?" Sarah stood up slowly. "Where?" "William's gambling debts in Atlantic City. 3 separate casinos." The chapel erupted again. People were standing, shouting questions, demanding answers. Dad was trapped in the middle of it all, his perfect facade crumbling with every word Marcus spoke. Ashley was crying now, finally understanding that her perfect father wasn't who she thought he was. "Marcus, how do you know all this?" someone called out. My stepdad smiled sadly. "Because I'm a forensic accountant for the state treasury. I've been building this case as part of an official investigation, but when William chose to publicly humiliate Emma today, I decided the community deserved to know who they'd been trusting with their money." Everything clicked into place. Marcus's late nights working on projects. His mysterious phone calls. The times I'd caught him studying financial documents at the kitchen table. He hadn't just been investigating Dad. He'd been protecting me. "The state has been watching Colin's construction for 18 months, Marcus continued. "We have evidence of embezzlement, tax evasion, and fraud totaling over $2 million. William's been living a lie, and today he tried to make his daughter pay for his crimes by refusing to support her happiness." Dad finally found his voice. "You planned this. You married Sarah just to get to me." Marcus's expression hardened. "I married Sarah because I love her. I investigated you because you're a criminal who's been hurting people I care about." The truth was devastating and beautiful at the same time. My quiet, humble stepdad was actually the hero who'd been fighting for justice all along. "Emma," Marcus said, walking back to me, "I know this isn't how you pictured your wedding day. But I couldn't watch him hurt you anymore while knowing what I knew." I stared at this man who'd raised me, loved me, and apparently spent years building a case to protect our community from my father's crimes. "You did this for me?" "I did this for everyone he's hurt," Marcus replied. "But yes, sweetheart, partly for you. You deserved to see him face consequences for once in his life." Jake stepped forward. "Sir, with respect, maybe we should finish the ceremony first? Emma's been dreaming of this day for months." Marcus nodded immediately. "Of course. I'm sorry, Emma. I just couldn't let him sit there pretending to be the victim when Marcus," I interrupted, my voice stronger than I felt. "Thank you." The chapel was still buzzing with shocked conversations, but Pastor Williams managed to restore some order. "If everyone could please take their seats," he announced, "we'll complete the ceremony. There will be time for questions later." But the damage was done. Dad's reputation was destroyed, and everyone knew it. As people settled back into their pews, I saw him slumped in his seat, defeated. For the first time in my life, I wasn't afraid of him. We finished the ceremony in a surreal bubble of joy and chaos. When Pastor Williams pronounced us husband and wife, Jake kissed me like we were the only people in the world. But I could hear whispers everywhere. $2 million? I donated to that veteran housing project. I always wondered how he afforded that new boat. During our recessional, I saw Dad trying to leave quietly through a side door, but several guests stopped him with angry questions. Ashley was crying hysterically, her perfect world shattered. At the reception, Marcus pulled Jake and me aside. "I want you to know," he said seriously, "this investigation has been completely separate from my role as your stepfather. I never used family information inappropriately. Everything I discovered came through official channels." "How long have you known?" I asked. "About the embezzlement?" 18 months. "About him being a terrible father?" "Since the day I met you." Jake shook his hand firmly. "Thank you, sir. For everything." The reception continued around us, but it felt different now. People kept approaching me with apologies for supporting Dad, for not seeing through his act, for judging my choice to marry Jake. By evening, local news crews had arrived. My wedding was becoming the story that would bring down the town's most prominent businessman. The headlines hit the next morning while Jake and I were on our honeymoon. Local construction owner accused of embezzling millions. Colin's construction under federal investigation. Wedding disruption reveals massive fraud scheme. My phone rang constantly. Reporters wanted interviews. Dad's business partners were demanding explanations. Several charities were filing lawsuits. Mom called, crying. "Emma, I had no idea Marcus was investigating your father. He never said a word about it. Are you upset with him? I asked. Upset? Honey, I'm proud of him. Your father has gotten away with hurting people for too long. Marcus did what needed to be done. Ashley called too, sobbing. Emma, I'm so sorry. I didn't know. Dad always said you were just being dramatic, that you couldn't handle not being the favorite anymore. For the first time, my half-sister sounded human instead of perfect. The FBI raided his office this morning, she continued. They took boxes and boxes of evidence. His lawyer says he might be facing 20 years in prison. 20 years. The man who'd controlled my life through fear and manipulation was about to lose control of everything. But I didn't feel vindicated. I felt sad for the little girl who just wanted her father's love. When we returned from our honeymoon, the town had transformed. Collins Construction's offices were sealed with yellow tape. Dad's fancy Mercedes had been repossessed. His house was listed for sale. Marcus had returned to his normal routine like nothing had happened, but everywhere we went, people treated him like a hero. The quiet accountant who'd brought down a corrupt businessman. Any regrets? I asked him over dinner one night. He considered the question carefully. I regret that it took so long. I regret that he hurt you for so many years while I was gathering evidence. But I don't regret exposing the truth. Mom reached across the table to squeeze his hand. Neither do I. The community was rallying around the victims of Dad's fraud. A legal fund had been established to help recover the stolen money. Several local businesses offered jobs to Dad's employees who'd lost their positions. Dad had disappeared entirely. Ashley told me he was staying with his lawyer, preparing for the criminal trial. She'd moved in with Preston's family, too ashamed to face her friends. He keeps asking me to visit him, she said during one of our hesitant phone calls. I don't know what to say to him anymore. 3 months after my wedding, Dad's trial began. The evidence Marcus had gathered was overwhelming. Bank records showed a clear pattern of stolen funds being moved to Dad's personal accounts. Email chains revealed his awareness that what he was doing was illegal. I attended one day of testimony, sitting in the back of the courtroom with Jake and Marcus. Dad looked smaller somehow, older and defeated in his orange jumpsuit. When he saw me, his eyes filled with what might have been regret. Or just self-pity. I couldn't tell the difference anymore. The prosecution painted a picture of a man who'd used his reputation and charm to steal from people who trusted him. Veterans waiting for housing. Employees counting on retirement funds. Charities serving the homeless. During victim impact statements, I heard story after story of people Dad had hurt while I was growing up thinking I was the problem. He convinced us he was investing our donation wisely, said Margaret Foster, whose husband died waiting for the veteran housing that never got built. We trusted him because everyone said he was such a good family man. I almost laughed at the irony. A good family man who destroyed his own daughter's self-worth while stealing from everyone else. The verdict came back guilty on all counts. 25 years in federal prison, full restitution ordered, all assets seized. I felt nothing watching him led away in chains. No satisfaction, no sadness, just emptiness where anger used to live. Outside the courthouse, reporters asked if I had any comment. My stepfather is a hero, I said simply. He protected this community from a man who spent years hurting people. I'm proud to be his daughter. Ashley was there too, crying into Preston's shoulder. I walked over to her hesitantly. Ashley, I'm sorry, I said. I know this is hard for you. She looked up with red, swollen eyes. You're apologizing to me? After everything he put you through? You loved him. That's not your fault. She hugged me then, the first real hug we'd ever shared. I see it now, she whispered. How he treated you differently. How mean he was. I just thought that was normal. We weren't going to be best friends, but maybe we could be sisters for the first time. Marcus approached us both. Are you girls okay? Ashley wiped her eyes and looked at him with something like respect. Thank you for telling the truth. Even though it hurt. Sometimes the truth is supposed to hurt, he replied gently. A year later, Jake and I bought our first house using money we'd saved working double shifts. It was small, modest, nothing like the mansion Dad had lost to federal seizure. But it was ours. Completely, honestly ours. Marcus helped us move in, carrying boxes like he'd been doing my whole life. Mom made sandwiches and lemonade, fussing over every detail. You know what the best part is? Jake said, flopping down on our second-hand couch. What? We did this without any help from him. Everything we have, we earned. He was right. The little house felt like a palace because we'd built it through hard work and love, not manipulation and stolen money. Marcus joined us on the couch, looking tired but content. Any word from the prison? I asked. He writes sometimes, Marcus admitted. Mostly complaints about his conditions. Sometimes apologies that don't sound sincere. Do you think he's actually sorry? Marcus considered this. I think he's sorry he got caught. Whether he's sorry for what he did, that's harder to say. I didn't need his apology anyway. I had something better, freedom from ever needing his approval again. 2 years after the trial, I got pregnant with our first baby. The news filled me with joy and terror in equal measure. What if I turn out like him? I asked Jake during one of my worried 3 a.m. conversations. Emma, Jake said, pulling me close, you've spent your whole life being the opposite of your father. You give instead of taking. You build people up instead of tearing them down. Our kid will be lucky to have you. Marcus agreed when I shared my fears with him. You know what real love looks like because you experienced it with your mom and me. You know what cruelty looks like because you survived it with William. That makes you incredibly qualified to be a mother. When our daughter was born, I held her tiny perfect face and made a promise. She would never doubt her worth. She would never have to earn love. She would know, from day one, that she was enough. We named her Hope Marcus Rodriguez. Marcus cried when we told him about the middle name. You don't have to do that, sweetheart. Yes, I do, I said firmly. She's named after her hero grandfather. Because that's what Marcus had been all along, not just a stepfather, but a hero who'd spent years quietly fighting for justice. On Hope's first birthday, Ashley visited us with surprising news. She'd started working for a non-profit organization that helped fraud victims recover stolen assets. Your story inspired me, she told me while watching Hope demolish her birthday cake. I realized I'd been living off money Dad stole from people. I needed to do something to help fix that. She'd also broken up with Preston. Turns out I was just as shallow as everyone thought, she said with a sad laugh. Preston wanted a trophy wife, not a real partner. Sound familiar? Ashley was becoming the person she should have been all along, instead of Dad's perfect princess. Do you ever miss him? I asked. I miss the father I thought he was, she replied honestly. But I don't miss walking on eggshells, trying to be perfect all the time. It's exhausting being someone's favorite when their love comes with conditions. Marcus joined us in the backyard where Hope was trying to eat grass. How are my girls doing? We're good, Ashley said, and I realized she was including herself in that we. Somewhere along the way, we'd become a real family. Not perfect, but real. Built on truth instead of lies. When Hope turned 2, she said her first complete sentence, Grandpa Marcus, read story. Watching Marcus light up at being called Grandpa, I realized something important. Biology doesn't make a father. Love does. Consistency does. Showing up does. Dad had missed all of it. My wedding, Hope's birth, her first steps, her first words. He'd chosen pride over connection, control over love. The last letter I'd received from him was full of self-pity. I hope you're happy, Emma. You got your revenge. Your old man is rotting in prison while you play house with your mechanic. I threw the letter away without finishing it. His words couldn't hurt me anymore because I finally understood they'd never been about me. They'd been about his own insecurity, his need to feel superior to everyone around him. Marcus was teaching Hope to garden, patiently explaining how flowers grow. See, little one? First you plant the seed, then you water it, then you wait. Good things take time. That's what he'd done for me. Planted seeds of love and security, watered them with consistency, and waited for me to bloom. Dad had tried to tear me down. Marcus had built me up. The difference was everything. 3 years after Dad's conviction, the last of the stolen money was recovered and distributed to victims. Marcus had stayed involved in the process, making sure everyone got what they were owed. It's finished, he told me over Sunday dinner. Everyone's been made whole, as much as possible. Including me, I said, squeezing his hand. Hope was playing with her toy cars on the floor, completely oblivious to the adult conversation. She'd never known a world where Grandpa William existed. In her reality, Marcus had always been her grandfather. You know what's funny? I said. Dad always said I'd regret choosing Jake over financial security. But we're doing fine. We have everything we need. You have more than that, Marcus pointed out. You have peace. He was right. I slept well at night. I didn't jump when the phone rang. I didn't worry about saying the wrong thing or disappointing anyone. Jake's auto shop was thriving. I'd gotten promoted to principal at my school. We were saving for a bigger house where Hope could have a sibling and a yard to play in. Not bad for a mechanic and a teacher. On our 5th wedding anniversary, Jake surprised me with a renewal of vows ceremony. Small, intimate, just family and close friends. This time, Marcus walked me down the aisle without any drama, his arm steady and proud. No one was missing. No one was angry. No chaos, no revelations, just love. You look beautiful, sweetheart, he whispered as we reached the altar. Thank you for everything, Dad, I whispered back. His eyes filled with tears at the word Dad. After the ceremony, people asked about the original wedding, about the scandal that had rocked our town 5 years earlier. Best thing that ever happened to me, I told them honestly. That day, I learned who my real family was. Hope danced with Marcus to My Girl, giggling as he spun her around the small dance floor. Ashley took photos, capturing moments that no one would ever try to destroy. This was what family looked like. Not perfect, not conventional, but real. Built on love instead of lies. On choices instead of biology. Marcus had shown me that sometimes the greatest act of love is standing up to people who hurt the ones you care about. Today, Hope is 5 years old and starting kindergarten. She's fearless in the way children are when they've never been told they're not enough. Mommy, she asked this morning, why don't I have a grandpa on Daddy's side? You have Grandpa Marcus, I said. Sometimes families are made by choice, not just by blood. She nodded like this made perfect sense and ran off to play. Dad has 3 more years left on his sentence. I don't think about him much anymore. Sometimes I wonder if he's learned anything, if prison has taught him about consequences and empathy. Mostly, I hope he's found some peace with his choices. Marcus retired last year and spends his days gardening, reading to Hope, and volunteering with fraud prevention programs. He's become something of a local legend, the quiet accountant who brought down corruption. Any regrets? I asked him recently, the same question from years ago. Just one, he said, watching Hope chase butterflies in our backyard. I regret that it took me so long to realize that sometimes love means fighting for people, not just supporting them quietly. He'd done both. Supported me quietly for years, then fought for me publicly when it mattered most. Dad had refused to walk me down the aisle, thinking it would break me. Instead, Marcus did something no one expected. He gave me the gift of seeing justice done. Sometimes the best revenge is simply telling the truth.